unless you have been under a rock, I know you guys have heard about this Gabby Petito story. Okay. Who has not heard about it? It has become an international story. And there's so many things we can talk about with this one particular story. And the reason why we're going to talk about it today is because October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this case seems to be the most relevant case that we can talk about to bring light to this topic. Now, last year, we talked about another case. I don't know if you guys remember, for our big supporters who's been with us for the whole year. We love you guys. But you remember last year, we talked about the football player and the his black girlfriend that was abused, that happened around exactly the same time. And yet here we are, another national case of domestic violence. This one, unfortunately, ending in death. But let's talk about it. Let me ask you ladies a question. When you heard about this case first, what was one of the things that first came to mind?
Oh,
like when you first heard about this case?
honestly, because I heard about it, I knew she was white.
Okay, let's talk about that. Bam, and bam, 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 whatever that sound is. Let's talk about that part.
White and or celebrity, because otherwise you're not hearing about it. But
let's talk about that part.
National. What happened?
Let's talk about that part.
Yeah, so when you hear, oh, such and such, disappeared, or you might be, deceased or whatever, if it's on the news and it made national news, I was like, oh, that's a white girl. Or celebrity. Either one or the two.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? I would more say white girl, and I'll tell you why. Because there was at the same time in California, local news, state news, not even state, local news, there was a black actress. Am I going a little
No, we got you.
Okay. There was a black actress, a British actress that had just moved to Los Angeles that disappeared, and her family had reported her. Now, we heard about it mainly because it was on social media, and the black community, Twitter world, Instagram world was talking about it. But it was not on the national news, and it occurred at the same time that Gabby Petito was considered to be missing, before she was identified as being dead. And I will have to co-sign you, Chastity, because I kept thinking to myself, wow, our national news has not picked this up, and it's all over the Black community, but nationally it's not being talked about. But this one case has been talked about. Why do you guys think that this particularly, do you think it's just because she's white? Because some people are saying that it's because they were kind of chronicling their expedition on social media, and so some people are saying that that's why it took a lot of momentum and garnered a lot of national news. What do you think about that point?
I can believe that her having how many of her followers or being considered some level of an influencer definitely played a role in it. But yeah, definitely the fact that she was white as well. Because now all of a sudden we get to see all this footage of the stops and the this and all these whatever interactions and stuff that's been going on. So I'm gonna co-sign on your co-sign, because at the same point in time where she's missing, there are lots of women that are missing who happen to be indigenous or just not, and we don't hear anything about them. And we're talking about not one. We're talking about over 20 from what
over a course of a decade as well, they said.
We're not, actually, there was one of the reports that I was looking at, it talked about a series of indigenous women. I don't remember the state, but they were missing. It might have been upwards of like 15 of them missing in 1 month. 1 month. At least 15 of them in this particular state and in this particular region of the state. None of that is being broadcasted. That's not being told nationally. So I agree, the same thing.
I don't know if I want to say I can appreciate. However, I don't want to minimize this young person's death. I don't want to do that. But then, however, comma, however, whatever, grammatically correct. It sheds a fact on the duality of news media when it comes to Black women and Indigenous women and other women of color, and then white women. So I don't want to say the word appreciate, but I respect the fact that it shed a light. I don't like the fact that it took her death to shed a light on someone else's death, because that minimizes her death, because
Right.
her story does get lost, but then others get broadcasted. So I think it's like a double-edged sword, like like a little damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. But she was killed, which is extremely unfortunate. It was overshadowed by the fact that a lot of other Indigenous people it was overshadowed, but then also brought to light that a lot of other Indigenous women had died in that same area. I just hate that. I just have a strong dislike that someone had to die, a white person had to die in order to shed light on something that has been happening in this Indigenous area for over a decade. And multiple women have been missing, to your point, Dr. Job, in this particular area. And I don't know. It's just, I'm really conflicted by the whole thing. I feel bad for the girl's family, and this young person lost her life. Then also, it's shedding light on something that we've been talking about forever. So it's like that. It's a huge conflict for me.
And the name, just to mention the name of the Indigenous woman that was missing since 2017, that would be Ashley Loring, Heavy Runner, for those who are watching who may want to look up that story. And then the young man who was reported missing by his family, that also caught national news as a result of, I don't want to say backlash, but a response to the lack of coverage for people of color, was Jelani Day, who was reported missing and then was also found dead. Karen, you had something to say also about it?
Back onto what Chastity is saying, she was saying that is, been brought up and, not overshadowing the young lady that passed away. But I want to know, I was looking at the news and stuff, was it being brought to everybody's attention once the news, like, how everybody have said anything, the news said something, I guess the young lady, her family was all like, oh, y'all should bring like to other people's stories too, because not only, this happened to my daughter, but this. So is that when everything starts bringing light to it, when her family spoke up, or just everybody from all over attacking and saying other people has been missing and death occurred too? And this time too, not just her. Is that
I was going to say, from my vantage point, it appeared to have really garnered a lot of momentum on the social media network, where people were really just bringing light, because these missing cases were already known to the community. And so I think because they were already present in our minds and in our thoughts and had already been talked about, I think it just really put that extra stamp on it when we saw this particular case go national, and just not national, but just like all the major, and even some of our commentators who tend to really talk about the community, they too weren't even talking about the community. They were talking about this particular case. And there are different motivations as to why certain decisions are made by networks, and maybe ratings, getting on the hot story, riding the horse, so to speak. But I do feel conflicted, because I agree with Chastity that, her story is equally important. We're not saying that her story is not important, and I want to make sure that that's clear. We're saying that we want all the other stories to come up to that level. Like, we want that level of attention when the Black girl on the corner is missing, or the Indigenous woman is missing, or any other, or the Latina is missing. Remember 2 years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago, at one point there were like 14 young Black and Hispanic girls that went missing in the DC area. Poof, gone. And that got attention for like that much time, and then no one really followed up and told us what happened to them. Did we find them? Are they alive? And there's been no follow-up. So I just feel like, we do need to bring more attention to this. And something else Chastity said also kind of rung a bell with me, the fact that we are still talking about this, the abuse of minorities, women, domestic violence. I feel like we put so much resources, and clearly we need more, but so much resources get poured into domestic violence. We're talking about domestic violence. The nonprofits are out there, they have rolled up their sleeves and they are working. Why are we not seeing any improvement in this area? Why hasn't it improved? Why do we still have stories like Gabby Petito? Sorry.
I believe there's still a bit of a stigma. And so people are afraid, besides the fear of being hurt because they try to leave or whatever the case may be. I think there's still a stigma. People feel really ashamed to say that they're experiencing the things that they're experiencing. And of course, the gaslighting that may be coming from the abuser and those types of situations, right? So they could have been abused in the past and think it's normal. They're sustaining, they're maintaining, they love this person, they don't want to hurt them, all these other things. So that kind of cycle of it is continuing. They don't want to tell anybody, they don't want to admit what's happening. Some of them, they don't think it's abuse, whatever. They kind of struck me about it in having a conversation with some of my colleagues, even during the week. You know, when we talk about it and we talk about domestic violence, like I kind of like the term a little bit more than saying like spousal abuse, because spousal abuse, it seems like it's just a one-on-one. And correct me if I'm wrong, I could have all my facts wrong, but she lived with the boyfriend and his family, right?
Yes.
So what were they doing? This would not.
They are not disclosing information, is what they're not doing. But yeah,
but this would not have been just a him and her, right? More than likely, they're supporting everything he does. They are abusing her the same way too. Maybe not physically hitting her, but making her feel like she's overreacting when he does things. Or so they're probably gaslighting too. So it becomes a pattern of we're all jumping on this weaker person. So that's literally like in the domicile, you are being abused in the domicile by those that you are living with. And so that's what I kept thinking about coming up on this. But there's still a big stigma around admitting that you are suffering or you're hurting.
I think the other thing also is a lot of abuse does happen in silence. Like you can, like you have a lot of families that have no idea abuse is going on. And then you also have families who draw the line, like, you know what, this was going on too long. We've tried to help. Like families do intervention, like, you know what, this is, okay, if you can't keep yourself safe, we're going to come get the kids, make sure the kids are safe. So I think it's very important to also understand that when the riskiest time for a person to leave is they're most in danger when they're leaving. Why don't you just, when people say, and Dr. Job, I'm not saying this is what you were saying, but just in general, there's a lot of shame around domestic violence. To your point, Dr. Job, well, why didn't you just leave? It's a lot of victim blaming as well. So when someone has beat your psyche down, the battered woman syndrome or the batter syndrome, when someone has beat you down so much, do you think that you are worthless? It is hard to leave. But then I want people to also understand that you are at highest risk when you make that decision to leave. I was listening to one person say, she always answers, I don't know what this, it was a case study or it was somewhere that I heard a woman didn't leave, but she always answered the phone when her husband called, because that gave her clues to where he was, how close he was, and how much time she had to do what she needed to do. So people develop, Dr. Job, to your point, it does become normal to some point, but it also becomes coping. It becomes a defensive mechanism that a lot of women employ to ensure that they are safe and that their kids are safe. It's maladaptive to us. We don't understand it on the outside looking in, but that's how they have survived for a number of years. And when you have the straw that breaks the camel's back, that's when you know a lot of women have died when they take that chance to leave, because that's when they are at highest risk of death from a domestic partner or from domestic abuse is when they're deciding to leave.
Let me ask you a question. I'm gonna lean into this conversation. Let me ask you a question, Chastity, because for a woman who or a individual, because domestic violence is not specific to any particular type of relationship, but for someone who is currently undergoing domestic violence, who hear that domestic violence, who hear that particular statistic, the fact that the danger is at the greatest time when they're leaving, what would you say to that person who may be contemplating leaving, but knowing that that the danger is heightened at that particular time? What would you say to someone like that?
Support them and help them if they're at the point of they're out of like, there's a thing in motivational interview when you're contemplating, you're pre-contemplating. When they're in a phase of, yo, it's time, you could be supportive. Then you can also, as a therapist, or you can also help them make a plan. I think we talked about this in the beginning of our being HBC. A therapist actually helped someone make a plan. The couple was actually in therapy. And what the therapist did was, I want to know how you guys are doing in therapy. So I'm going to talk to you guys separately, okay? Let me talk to the husband first. Talk to the husband first, got his guard down, got him cool, calm, and collected. Then talk to the woman. And that's when the woman really revealed that she was being abused. So they used their therapy session to, one, have her be open and honest about the abuse, but then also help her establish a plan during therapy, and the other person was none the wiser. So you can be supportive in the best way that you know how, help them develop a plan. You can be I'm not saying the therapist has to be a part of the plan, but have supportive friends like, okay, at this time, you just have to be support. And when they're ready, if they have a plan, help support them with that plan, and be supportive and or available in whichever way you can to be.
And what if it is the person that's being abused that's watching? So that's amazing advice for someone who is in the vicinity or is aware of someone who is being abused. If I'm the person who is experiencing domestic violence of any kind, including in marriages, and I want to make that clear that abuse, emotional, verbal, and physical abuse happen in marriages, and you can be raped in marriage, just to make sure that that's clear. How do I, like, what's my best first step?
I think that I wouldn't do anything impulsively. I would, unless you see your opening and it's like, yo, I got it, I'm out. Leave everything behind and go. So if you see an opening and it's safe, and I mean, like, let's just say if it's just you, whatever have you. But I think the very most important part with a therapist and or not is to develop some sort of plan.
Okay.
A getaway plan or a safety plan, and have a go bag ready. So you know when you watch the movies and they always pack a bag? No. Have the bag ready to be grabbed or in your car. So if anything hits the fan, you could just go. So have your plan together and have a go bag. And then in your go bag, have a set of clothes, whatever important documentation that you may need, identification, money, cash money, sneakers, don't be out here running, whatever you have, whatever you need.
Don't try to repeat the movies. This is not Lifetime. This is your life. Yeah. Take the heels off.
Right. Yes. If you out there in bare feet, honey, you know how we used to run in with bare feet when we were younger. We thought we'd go faster. So if you got bare feet, whatever it may be, have your go bag ready and have a plan.
Yeah, because it is life and death for some women, and for some men, it really is life and death.
And that window is always small. The window for escape or to make your move, it's not always a big window. You don't always have a lot of time. That's why you need your plan and your go bag, because you might have 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes might determines life or death. So
I like that. I really like that recommendation. And I think also, you were gonna say?
I was just saying I have a story that is a personal story that I really seen that, like, you said these Lifetime movies, like I really seen that. And yes, it do something to your psyche. as you get older. But I really like experienced seeing somebody run away from a domestic violence stuff, and I was in the midst of it and everything. And not to put my business out there like that, but by saying, my parents wasn't together, but by my mom having a lot of boyfriends, I guess she didn't know how to pick them good because they always wanted to do either verbally or physically, hit her. But my grandma used to always pick us up. And this boyfriend my mom always had used to always do crazy stuff. And although he didn't try to do it in front of me and my brother, one time my mom was like, "Oh, you gotta go to your grandma's house," and we went, and I was feeling all that, like I can't leave my mom alone. I can't leave my mom alone, but not knowing my mama had a plan. Her plan was, yeah, he did something. I guess she came in the middle of the night. I was young. She came in the middle of the night to my grandma's house. Yeah, she was hit for a little while and all that. But I guess when he realized where she was at and he came over, my mama had the courage to press charges, call the police and press charges. So seeing that, I was all like, women go through that? Like, why?
Yes, child. Yes, child.
Why? But as I got older, my mom was like, you crazy at asking, because I always ask a lot of boyfriends, call me crazy if you want to. I always ask, hey, how you doing, all that? Do you put your hands on a woman? And if he said, yeah, or I don't mind putting my hands on, it's a goodbye. My mom was like, you ain't gonna never get a man. I ain't gonna never get a man that gonna hit me. That's what I'm not gonna get. That's what I'm not gonna get. You can do one move and you out of here, buddy. No. So hey,
I hear that.
I'm just saying, I know I can test for the women, and saying at a young age, that tells me the standard of what type of guy I did not want to get into.
I know that's right. And to your point, to both of your points, as a women's health provider, and a prior rape crisis advocate, the stories get really, really intense stories. I've seen from women who have been literally held captive, not just being undergoing domestic violence, but actually chained, and held captive and escape with that last minute window that Chastity was talking about. To add to what Chastity was saying, also take the time to evaluate and investigate shelters and safety places that you can go. A lot of the domestic violence shelters, they'll have an office, but you can find out where their safety place is. Go to them. They would be a good place to go to. Family member, if you feel that a family member is a safe place to go to. Sometimes they're not, because if the perpetrator knows where your family is, that may be one of the first place that they'll go to try to look for you. So I would definitely reach out to a domestic violence shelter, know where they are in your neighborhood. So when you do have that window, you have a place that you can go to, and then you can always go to the hospitals. The hospitals are always open. They can protect you. They have services there that will take care of you. Because a lot of the patients that I encounter through just a regular visit, they'll come in for a routine visit, and we screen for domestic violence. We screen for abuse. And oftentimes we're the first people that they will tell. And we come up with, like Chastity say, a plan with our therapists on our team. They get referred to them, and they get the resources that they need. And it's not an easy decision, and it's a hard decision when there are kids involved. To Karen's point, when kids are involved, it's a very hard decision, especially if a mom is concerned about her ability to provide for her kids and the safety of her kids and the ability of. It's harder to run when you have a 3-year-old. It's harder to run when you have a 5-year-old, and oftentimes that's the reason why they don't leave. But then ultimately, you got to keep in mind that 3-year-old and that 5-year-old need their mom. So it may require a more strategic planning. But staying could mean that they can be without a mom and living with that person, because nothing has been filed, no charges have been known. And some people, to Dr. Triss's point, may not even know that you were experiencing domestic violence or domestic abuse or abuse. One thing
that I wanted to also bring up is the sad fact that this is happening between not only adults, you have intimate partner violence, IPV, with teenagers. I work in high schools and elementary.
Let's
Let me
talk
tell you
about it.
something. These high schools and elementary schools, like this is different. I've been exposed to some stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back and get a couple of refreshers because I'm not prepared to talk to an 8th grader or a 9th grader about DV that they've been going through. Because you know how,
Wow.
like back in the day when they like, oh, if a boy hits you, that means he likes you. Like, you
Mhm.
remember how we used to say
Yes,
that back in the
yes,
day?
yes.
So,
Mhm.
but
Where does
that
that come from? Whose idea was
used to,
that?
whoever brought
Who
it up
said
needs to,
that?
yeah. Like, oh, if a boy hits you, oh, that's just a little love tap. That's just a little love tap or something like that. But
But
what I
look
need,
how that really molds behavior, right, Chastity?
Exactly.
exactly. So, it's not a whole, from what I understand, it's not a whole lot of research out on it yet, but these are some slowly creeping stories, slowly creeping up. There's more and more stories of intimate partner violence with our young people. So if you
Wow.
have a young person,
Tell
that's
me
something else
about
I
it,
need
because
y'all.
I have a high schooler. Tell me about it. I hear all
No, I'm
kinds of
just
stories
saying,
from
just
my
keep it on your
daughter.
radar. If you have your kid walking around, like if their attire isn't appropriate to weather, like if it's 90 degrees and your kid got on a hoodie and a long sleeve shirt, I assess 2 things. Are we cutting or are we got some bruises? Because something is not, there's no cohesion between, that's not weather appropriate attire. You know what I mean? So like looking at who my grandma, when I was allowed to date, my grandmother was like, oh no, they coming in the house. I need to meet them. Where are you going? Like, I think a lot of parents nowadays are afraid to like have certain amount of structure and boundary. Like they don't ask their daughters or their sons about whom they're dating anymore, or, oh, mom, it's none of your business. Oh, but yes, it is. So whoever you're dating, bring them to the home. Let's meet. Don't be afraid to be up in
Mine's
your
can't
kid's
date.
life.
Mine's can't
But
date.
those stories are becoming more and more prevalent. And I'm in a middle
Wow.
school now, y'all. I'm in a middle school.
That is so
And
scary. That is so scary. But
it's
I love the
very
fact
scary.
that you touched on such basic things that we say that are kind of cute, or historically used to be, frivolous comments, and how
Yeah.
much we really start molding not just the potential victim, but also the perpetrator, right? To Karen's point, she talks about the generational, I don't want to say curse, I hate saying cursing, but generational habits or generational behavior of potentially picking the same type of person as your partner. But there's also generational transference of these behaviors of the perpetrator as well. So seeing that type of violence, also for the moms who are contemplating, who have kids, who are witnessing, they are also becoming conditioned to certain ways of problem solving, conflict solving, power structures and things like that, and it forms the psyche of the future perpetrator just as much as it does the potential future victim as well.
Yes. And just because your kid does not see it doesn't mean that they're not affected by it. Just when sometimes parents or people say, well, my kids never saw that. A child never seeing something visually doesn't mean it doesn't affect them auditorily. Hearing it. Hearing it is just abusive as seeing it. When I'm screening for domestic violence in a home or in a community, I ask you, have you witnessed this visually, or is this something that were you present? Did you see it or did you hear it? Although visually it can have a different effect, but also it can still have the same effect even if you hear it, because you don't see it. You're making up a picture in your head of what it might be. You're hearing screaming, you're hearing slapping, and you have no idea. You are completely in the dark, literally and figuratively. Sometimes not seeing it, you might think is less abusive, or it'll have a less effect on your child, but both can carry the same weight. So just because your child didn't see it doesn't mean they're not affected by it. Because the aftermath of that, let's just say they didn't see it, nor hear it.
Right.
However, but they see your face
Yes.
Right.
when it's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
walk through the house and see broken dishes. They see your dad or your mother, whomever. So it's a trickle-down effect. So just because your child may not have seen it doesn't mean they're not affected by it.
Or they're in a corner listening and imagining that you may die this time, that you may not
Yeah.
walk out this time.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
I
right.
had those triggers too. I had those
Yeah.
too. But
Yeah.
back onto the kids, my daughter, she tells me every little thing, and I'm here for it. I'm her open ear. She told me about she's in 11th grade now, but she told me back when she was in the 9th grade how she's seen a couple that was all cute and all that, whatever they want to call it, but she knew the girl from another friend of hers. And although the boy, that friend was all like, the boy talked down to her, like he would talk real down to her and all that stuff. But I guess when she got fed up, she was like, I can't do this, we can't do it. He would come and present gifts to her so she could say. So when she get a gift, she feels bad or whatever. And my daughter was all like, I know I never had no boyfriend and all that, but that sounds stupid. Why does she keep on saying because she getting gifts and stuff, like she don't get nothing at home, like nobody. I said, babe, people want attention in all kinds of forms, whether it's positive or negative. And if she's getting love in that type of way, she's going to keep, that's what she's a norm to. That's what she's going to keep on getting and stuff. And if he keeps on showing her that in time to time, and nobody here to tell her and teach her, then she's not going to never learn. And my daughter's all like, well, I should speak up and say something. I said, well, what would you say to her? She was like, I don't know. I thought by me telling you was going to tell me. I could tell you some stuff, but you don't want to pry up in somebody's business and not even knowing them at all and stuff. Now, maybe you could say some stuff to your friend that knows her and she can help you. I'm not like, why are y'all going through? Y'all like 13, 14 years old. Like, seriously?
They're not
they're not through this stuff.
They're not the same type of middle and high schoolers as we used to be. They are not.
I understand, but you know what? I thank God for my daughter of asking questions. Although she never been in these situations, she asks questions. And for me as a parent and a millennium or whatnot, I give her the truth. I give her the honest truth and scenarios for this and that of anything will happen. So in your lifetime, when you get older, you know what to avoid, what to go to and all that. I'm gonna keep it real.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And to your point, just to touch on that before we wrap up, that is one of the red signals is when you see a youngster in a relationship where they are being given expensive gifts, gifts that are kind of almost inappropriate for their age group. That is a signal that they can be in a controlling relationship. So definitely keep your eye out for stuff like that. This topic, I wish we still didn't have to have a domestic violence awareness month. But it seems every time we come around each year, there's another major story. And my hope is that at some point we'll get it right in this country. But clearly it's an ongoing issue that requires us to continue to have these conversations. For those of us who are watching us, we're going to do a new thing now. So you get to ask us a question. So if you're watching this video and you have a question that you want us to answer, it could be related to the topic that we discussed today, or just a random question like, what's your favorite color, Chastity? You can drop us a comment, drop us your question in our comment section, and we will answer it on the following taping. So I will start off with my own question for the team before we wrap up this amazing discussion. So talking about domestic abuse and sexual abuse, R. Kelly trial, he's convicted. We can officially talk about this topic because we're going to talk about the problem just for a quick minute. I just want to get your quick 60-second comment on what were your thoughts when you heard that he was convicted of multiple racketeering offenses and sexual abuse charges in one state and still has, I think, 2 more states to be charged in. So we're gonna go around the round robin. We're gonna do round robin. Ooh, Lord, let the tongue loose.
It's Friday, honey. It's Friday. It's all good.
Oh, wow.
Let the tongue loose. We're gonna go round robin, and as you wrap up your 60-minute comment, tell us where we can find you on social media. Whoever want to go first, I'm gonna toss it up. Who want to catch it?
I'm gonna catch it. Oh, you want to catch it?
Let me go first because it's going to be real simple. So I had to go back and read what the comments were because I'll be honest, I'm not looking at the news like that. My first thought about that was, all right, let's go. Let's get it. Wrap it up nice and neat. Let's be done. Because yes, I know New York is done. So I'm like, okay, let's see what's going to happen in Chicago because there were some other verdicts that did not end in conviction. So I'm like, okay, are we going to go backwards? We're going to go forward, wrap it up in a nice neat bow. Let's go. I can be found at Instagram at tristanjob.dpt.
Awesome. Karen, you said you're going to catch it, Karen.
Well, y'all might be mad for me on this one, but I honestly don't care about his case or whatnot. I heard what happened. They can wrap it all up. I'm still going to be bumping his joints. Sorry, but not sorry. You can find me at What a Touch. Yes.
Okay, Karen. She laid down her.
I ain't mad at that at all.
Don't come for her.
Right. I'm like Dr. Job. I want to see, let's get to the end. I want to see how you present this gift. I was grateful that finally we got a tad bit of justice for our Black sisters. I mean, like it feels a little bit of visibility in regards to us. Period. However, comma, what else is going to happen? What's the sentence? Convictions is one thing. What's the sentence? So I want to see how this is, what's the sentence in New York or what's the sentence in the other 3 states? Or are they all going to do it in one thing? Like he'll serve, you know what I mean? So I have some questions. So I want to know what's next?
I hear that. And I am Dr. T. Hand. Oh, sorry. Yes. Where can we find you?
I am at miss.chaz on Instagram.
Awesome. Love it. And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club. So my 60-second tip on this would be what's going to happen to all the other people that co-signed what he did? When are they going to be charged?
Yes.
That's what I want to know. And kudos to all the women of color that stood up and stand their ground and had the courage to go forth and set these charges. We applaud you guys for your courage and for setting the example for other women. So we appreciate y'all. And now we are sending you positive light and love as you heal. Now that the book has been tossed, we're going to toss at least 2 more books. And like Chastity said, the value is in the sentencing. Let's see it happen. See y'all next episode. We love y'all. We love to love y'all. Bye.
Bye.